Good day, everyone, and welcome back to the Futurum Tech Podcast. I'm Ron Westfall, your host, research director here at the Futurum Group. And I'm excited for today's episode because we'll be talking with Samuel Liu. And Samuel comes from Marvell Technology. And today we'll be diving into Marvell's innovative breakthroughs in the coherent DSP technology area. So, with that, Samuel, please introduce yourself. You're a first timer, and I know we're going to have an exciting conversation ahead. And so, with that, tell us about yourself and what brought you into the industry.
Thank you, Ron. I'm very glad to have this opportunity to join the discussion. My name is Samuel Liu. I've been working in the network equipment industry for more than 25 years. Most of my time actually worked for this big name router transport company and some startup companies. So last 5 years, I'm honored to have this opportunity to manage the Coherent DSP as a PLM in Inphi and then in Marvell. Right? So all the
Mhm.
from the 16 nanometer, 7 nanometer, now we announce this new product, an excited product, 5 nanometer product.
Yeah, thanks for that, Samuel. That's very helpful background because we know that Marvell has come out with a couple of new important announcements, specifically the announcement related to Orion 800 and also the Color Z800 module announcement. And I know the folks in the industry out there want to know more about what is going on here in terms of coherent DSP technology innovation and what Marvell is bringing to the industry. And with that, Samuel, what is it that is really coming out that is going to be important for folks to know?
We announced two major products last few days,
Mhm.
last week. So the Orion is the new generation coherent DSP based on 5 nanometer technology. Hit the market. It's the first to enable coherent pluggable module. And we can build a solution to address both carrier use cases and the major hyperscale cloud data center interconnection solutions. On the At the same time, Marvell also announced our internal pluggable module based on Orion. So that's really laser focused for enabling the high-speed 800 gig ZR Plus pluggable module to address for the cloud use case.
And yeah, that certainly I think is important for folks to know. And what also leapt out at me were the new distance capabilities. For example, being able to go anywhere from 2 kilometers all the way up to 2,000 kilometers, if you will, the London to Minsk connection that comes to mind. And with that, can you elaborate more, Samuel, on what are these distance capabilities that are built in to the new products?
Yeah, so distance is it's important. It's easy to remember, right? So on the
Mhm.
carrier side, the use case, for example, based on the CFP2 DCO pluggable solution enabled by Orion, we can cover all the way with a 400 gig all the way to 2,000 kilometer. That's what we call the typical called the long haul
Mhm.
use cases. But we also offer many different variation solutions to optimize for regional, give or take around 1,000 kilometer of metro, right? Both 400 gig and 800 gig. On the other side, carrier also start to adopt this new architecture called IP
Mhm.
over DWDM. We collapse the layer for the packet layer and the transport layer. So allow the small form factor pluggable solution directly plug in on the router in the field. With that one, we also offer some new solution. Right? So we work closely with OpenZR Plus to define those 400 gig IP over DWDM solution beyond the metro. We are talking about 1,000 kilometer long regional and also 1,500 kilometer and beyond for long haul. So those are the distance covered with the higher data rate, 400, 600, 800 gig, use the small form factor pluggable solution.
No, that's very exciting. I'm glad, Samuel, that you mentioned pluggable optics because that's clearly a technology that is garnering a lot more attention. And with that, what is it that's driving the decision making with on the one hand, the cloud service providers, and on the other, the carriers? What is it about pluggable optics that's generating so much interest across the industry?
Yeah, so the pluggable solution itself have a clear benefit,
Hmm.
right? So it's like
Hmm.
they can allow the end user, we call the pay as you grow, right? So you can reduce the initial investment, gradually go and add it on. You can make the network more reliable, simpler, right? So if one of them broke or two, right? So you can easily just deal with that port instead of traditionally, if you stretch the density with a one fixed line card with multiple ports, one of them broke, you
Hmm.
right? Swap the whole line card. So there are many, many benefits, but also on the other side is many challenge because you need to offer the
Right.
good performance and the small enough power to fit in for this small form factor pluggable. So that's one major aspect. On the other side, pluggable
Hmm.
sometimes also coupled together with what we call the interoperation. Because pluggable solution, we can make it like our own Marvell technology, right? With the cutting edge, with the best performance, best power to fit in pluggable. But many end users also start to ask, since I have the pluggable solution, I'm driving to what we call the disaggregated architecture, right? They're not necessarily bundle one solution with one OEM. They may just open to see, hey, they can deal with module vendor A, B, C. They all offer the similar solution. You plug on this side router or the other side, they can talk to each other. It's an interoperation, right? So come with the pluggability. But on the other side, the cloud, as I mentioned, right, the
Hmm.
cloud DCI or the hyperscale, even from the current generation, the 400 gig generation, they already start to majorly deploy with this new transport architecture. That's the IP over DWDM, right? So you kind of like combine the two major network equipment
Hmm.
node, the router switch and the optical transport, more like into one, right? So you directly plug in the small form factor pluggable module on router switch. So you majorly reduce the investment, the capex, the opex. You reduce the space, you reduce the power, you make the transport layer much simpler, much more reliable. So these few things all interrelated. I just want to,
Hmm.
from a different angle, to give these comments. So,
Yeah, I know the pluggable optics and the pluggable modules are directly linked to those emerging use cases that you touched on, Samuel. And I know I see exciting ones on the horizon. And so let's drill down. What about the use cases that is being driven by these new Marvell products?
so let's start with the cloud use case or the cloud
Hmm.
DCI use case. So for them, when they grow their bandwidth, grow the switch capacity, right, from the 400 gig per port with the current 12.8T switch, either they double it, or many of them are even consider directly quadruple to 51.2T switch. With the big capacity, they still need what we call the data center interconnection. The physical size,
Right.
physical distance still there. The fiber, the patch panel still in the field, right? But now they need to connect them together. Instead of a 400 gig, they need to use 800 gig, right? So this is one clear use case to support the hyperscale, the cloud player, their capacity upgrade. That's one. The other one on the carrier side, their upgrade cycle is longer,
Right.
right? So it's more like every once a decade, every 8, 10 years. But they are going through, started from this year, a major upgrade from 100 gig router to 400 gig router. The core router, the edge router service, or even aggregation. So when they upgrade the router, they want to keep the data read end to end, right? So no matter it's a 2,000 kilometer, 1,000 kilometer, or 500 kilometer,
Mm-hmm.
if it's a 400 gig, the best way keep it in 400 gig, right? So there's a huge benefit from the packet layer, right? So due to the load balancing and other consideration. So with this and the compound together with the CIP2 pluggable module, finally, by offer by Orion enabled, they offer the performance. It's the same or even better than the bulky line card based, not pluggable, obviously, right? It's a lower cost, lower power, all these benefit, even with the current optical transport network architecture. But on the other side, some carrier are going to start to think, hey, why hyperscale cloud DCI, they adopt IP over DWDM, right? And they build a lower cost, a more reliable, simpler network. Why not we also do it? So some of the carriers start to more like instead of evolution to use the current traditional architecture, they start to adopt this new IP over DWDM architecture. So that one requires beyond just 400 gig ZR, also called ZR plus. They need a longer distance, right? So they need a higher output power for the module. It's not just regular OFD5 negative 10 dBm, right? So they need integrate amplifier directly come out 0 dBm, give or take. They can fit in for the exist optical transport gear, the ROADM, right, in the field. And the longer distance for them is not only increased engineering margin for the deployment, they're also going to cover more and more use cases where you have a better performance. So from both angles, Orion enable those new solutions to be available in next few months for the carrier to consider.
Yeah, and with these new Orion 800 capabilities, I think this is very exciting, and this can now be an opportunity to talk about, how did pluggables themselves come about? And Samuel, I know you have some definite thoughts on this and about, what's driving the module movement. And for that matter, what about a quick history of ZR plus technology? What is the background for that as well?
Yeah, if we rewind it back, the industry 5 years
Hmm.
back, right? So an OIF start to first time define this new category called the ZR WDM 400 gig.
Hmm.
And of course, right, it's a bumpy road. There's a lot of fighting, but now you can see the whole cloud DCI architecture. It's become a default architecture. All the major ones, right, they use this 400 gig ZR, some 400 gig ZR plus, directly plug on the switch of 12.8T switch. So this is where the ZR actually come from and hit the market with a huge success, right? To big extent, right? Thanks to not only my DSP, Coherent DSP, also my internal module product they offer, right? So help the lift the whole industry move to this way. They can see this is totally tangible, right? The benefit because architecture-wise, this is IP over DWDM, right? As I mentioned, you simplify the
Right.
transport and you save money, capex, opex. But on the other side, the hyperscale DCI, they need a huge volume, right? So this is a
Mhm.
lot of workings, not only the technology itself, even the manufacturing, the yield. There's a lot of things, right? Need to all work together. So ZR for cloud DCI is become a default. And now the ZR concept or ZR plus concept start to move
Mhm.
to the carrier side. They also want to take advantage of it, but they have few right immediate questions like, okay, my use case, most of them is beyond just ZR per se, the 80 kilometer, 100 kilometer. They need a full 500 kilometer. They need 1,000 kilometer. They need to beyond, right? That's a ZR plus settle down with metro-ish distance around 400, 500 kilometer. And but there's no buzzword for, okay, so what do you call 1,000 kilometer, right? So it's a regional, back to the traditional terminology for long haul regional metro, right? So that's the way to consider. And on the other side, as I mentioned, they also need beyond the ONF define 400 gig ZR, 800 gig ZR, right? So we work very closely, actually drive the OpenZR Plus MSA. We define not only the longer distance, also the higher output power. So allow this small form factor coherent pluggable module, 400 gig, 800 gig, to cover more and more use cases.
Yeah, with those capabilities, I see the demand is really going up. It's become, I would say, somewhat urgent. And I know in my discussions with the carriers and the service providers that there's quite simply more interest in expanding adoption of coherent optics, and quite simply taking advantage of the capabilities you outlined there, Samuel. And so, from your view, how urgent is the demand? What is driving the adoption of the new Marvell products?
It's very urgent overall, but again, we need to separate to talk about the cloud market segment versus carrier market segment. The cloud market segment, they are going through this new cycle of the switch capacity upgrade. As we mentioned, from 12.8T switch or 32 by 400 gig, they can double it and they can quadruple it directly to the 51.2T switch. So with that upgrade, they still need the data center interconnection to match their switch capacity. 800 gig ZR Plus is the only solution available to support. And do they need 1.6T? Yes, they need. But whole industry need more time for the technical innovation, the technology evolution, and then put things together a few years down the road. For this generation, next few years, 800 gig ZR Plus is the solution to enable the hyperscale upgrade for the switch. On the carrier side, it's different, right? They're upgrading
Right.
for the 400 gig router. It's even faster. I mean, it's ongoing faster, even though it's every 8-10 years upgrade. But their 400 gig router deployment for the tier one carrier already started this year now, right? So it will take a few more years, and then the tier two start next year. So this whole thing, when they upgrade the router, 400 gig router, it'll stay there for 5, 8, 10 years, right? Long time. So to some extent, the carrier use case is more immediate, right? Either it's the traditional long haul pluggable CIP2 or the IP over DWDM we talk about, right? So with carrier. So both end, they have a strong demand, and to some extent, they're waiting for optical solution, waiting for the Coherent DSP enabled pluggable solution.
Yeah, no doubt that both the carriers and the cloud service providers are keen on how do they better handle and scale their AI workloads. And that's been the hot topic of the summer, and I anticipate it will be an ongoing hot topic for the rest of the decade. And as such, it will certainly be very interesting to know, what about Marvell's expanding role in enabling the support of AI workloads? What do you see out there, Samuel, that folks are emphasizing, and how Marvell can make a key difference in this particular area?
Yes, AI is like exploding, right? So huge spike for last few quarters. But on the other side, this AI-driven bandwidth growth within data center will not stop only inside data center. It will eventually, or it's ongoing to drive between data center. You need the data center interconnection to grow with the bandwidth, right? So it's like you can call it distributed because one data center is not enough to finish all the computation, right? And that's from the AI machine learning, the training itself. But on the other side, as a user, right, you also want to plug in, want to take advantage of this AI capability, and more users start to also drive. Right, so users all distributed with the distance, so keep driving what we call the data center interconnection from a longer distance, long haul, metro or ZR plus to ZR. Or nowadays start to pop out new category ER, or those shorter distance, but it's outside of one data center. The bandwidth start to grow, and that's the part Marvell we start to offer not only Orion, the Coherent DSP, also our own pluggable module 800 gig ZR plus.
Yes. And as a result, I know folks out there are going to be keen about Marvell's roadmap. What is next? What can we anticipate, Samuel, in terms of what Marvell is planning in terms of, enhancing and improving the portfolio capabilities?
Yeah, again, right? So there's a two market segment,
Hmm.
right? So on the cloud side, there kind of like a bandwidth growth or the network equipment upgrade cycle is shorter. It's like a 3, 4, 5 year in that range. So next few year, right? So when the 51.2 T's become a new norm and the people start to even talk about beyond 100 T, right? So the next generation ZR plus interconnection, like a 1.6T, will be demanded, right? We are definitely focusing on to be the first down the road, right, to go along together with the whole industry to offer those solutions, right, to support those bandwidth growth, the upgrade. So that's one direction we are considering, and we are fully committed to drive. And the other ones on the carrier side, right, we need to think about
Right.
what is the best way going forward. As I mentioned, this router upgrade is like maybe every
Hmm.
every decade, every 8, 10 years, right?
Right.
So 400 gig possibly going to stay for a long time in the field. And then what will be the next, right? We can continue building a solution to extend even further performance, even further distance, right? We can drive a lower cost, lower power, right? So we can actually come out some optimized design even when they push the 400 gig from metro, from aggregation, even go down, right, to backhaul eventually. So there's a lot of different things we need to consider. But on the other side, 800 gig routers start to come in for the some big large core node, right? So those will start to eventually next few years 800 gig performance. How do we enhance, right? Cover longer distance, better performance, still fit in for pluggable module. So
And yeah, I know I'm looking forward to what is being developed, and certainly I see it aligning with what the cloud service providers, the hyperscalers are demanding and prioritizing, as well as naturally the operators in terms of what they are actually going to spend more money on eventually in terms of upgrading all of their router capabilities, certainly when it comes to leveraging pluggable optics. And I know that is going to be a huge difference maker over the next couple of years plus. And with that high note, thank you so much, Samuel, for joining our webcast today.
thank you, Ron. Very glad to have this opportunity to discuss our Marvell solution.
Exactly. And with that, everyone, please hit the subscriber button. Join us for our upcoming Futurum Tech podcasts. And this was a great conversation. I know that Samuel definitely brought in the insights that are going to be very valued by the audience out there, particularly when it comes to Marvell's contributions to coherent DSP technology. And again, we appreciate Marvell for joining our webcast today. And with that, good day, everyone, and thanks for tuning in. We'll see you later.